How to submit your comic strip. The basic package. First off, whenever you send your strip for submission to newspaper syndicates, include a self-addressed stamped evolve envelope with it for the return of your materials. Send your submissions by regular mail and be sure to put your name, telephone number, and address on the back of each piece of artwork so that the syndicate editors will know to whom the work belongs. If it gets separated from your cover letter, always include a cover letter and in it briefly describe your new comic strip. Do so in a way that will make the editors want to read it. Use a hook. See page 74. Mention any published credits of or art education. If you don't have either, just talk about the strip. Limit the cover letter to the page. And here is a bit of incredibly obvious advice that I am going to say nonetheless. Always type your letters. If editors see a handwritten letter, they will assume you are either a rank amateur or prisoner without access to a typewriter. Include your resume only if you have published credits, otherwise skip it and just send the goods with your cover letter. If you are in your 20s, find a way to mention this. It's a plus. Syndicate will assume, often incorrectly, that this means you are funnier and fresher than people in their 50s. And never ever send original art, and send clean copies. You should hear back within 2 to 3 full months. How many daily and Sunday strips should I send? Send 2 weeks worth of inked daily comic strips and 2 weeks worth of roughs, penciled dailies. Remember, there are 6 dailies in a week. Always presets the strips with your strongest jokes first. Don't save the best for last because those strips might never be read. Always include a couple of Sunday strips. You can leave out the color on these. Some syndicates don't require Sunday strips for the initial submission. Contact each syndicate directly and ask for their submission guidelines. Xerox and reduce the strips so that they fit on standard 8 half and 11-inch paper. One strips to pages as an editor prefer. Using a fancy binder is not a good idea. It screams I am new at this. A simple binding will do. Let your work speak for itself. Copyright your material if you like. Even put a small copyright symbol and date on the bottom if you want. But for the heaven's sake, don't be rude and write. Property of John Doe. Unauthorized use will be. You will seem ready to instigate a lawsuit, which will keep your work very safe because then no one will read it. If the editors like your strips, they will ask to see more samples to be ready with some backup. Then the syndicate may offer you a manager amount of money during an option period to test you out. If that goes well, they may offer you contract, and that could mean serious bucks, in which case I get 10%. Submitting spot gags to magazines. When sending spot gags, send them in a batches of 6 to 8 illustrated gags. Follow the same instruction as with the daily strips for artworks format. Submission and labeling. Keep a falling system by numbering your cartoons. For example, you might send gags 1 through 6 to publication, a gag 7 through 12 to publication B, and gags 13 through 19 to publication C. If publications buys gags 3 and sends back the rest, have 5 more gags to send to publication B. If possible, sell only first time rights, which is the right for a magazine to publish your cartoon first. Afterwards, this allows you to resell that same cartoon over and over again to other publications, just not for the first time rights anymore. The character sheet. Okay, here is the questions. What goes on the top of the package of details and Sundays that you submit to the syndicate? A. Teeny present to make the syndicate editors feel special. A self-portrait because they need to know what you look like. A character sheet showing who all the characters are in your comic strips. D. Sum of A and part of B. If you picked C, you are right. A character sheet provides you with a way to quickly introduce your characters to syndicate editors. It shows all the characters with a very brief descriptions under each one. Be clever in your descriptions. Be brief and be funny. Use the character sheet as the cover of your package of dailies. All these classes. Mike. Molly's egotistically suitor. He can't figure out why Molly doesn't think he is terrific. A third grade teacher trying to teach a bunch of kids whose only mission in life is to drive her nuts. She likes Mike. She just likes him more from a distance. Kyle and Betty. Two of Molly's students who are always trying to get even with each other. Don't ask them what started it. They wouldn't remember. Terence. He gets confused easily and with the help of his classmate stays that away. Chip and Maria. Two more of Molly's students. Maria is planning on marrying Chip whether he wants to or not. Mr. Wheaton, the principal, he has a knack of showing up just when everything is out of control. He does the best TSK in the business. Where to submit your stuff? Where to submit your stuff? So these are the some instruction. I'm not going to read all these steps because I'm not trying to uh, make all these cartoons just for the selling, right? So I'm leaving this. I'm going to move further. Working with a partner. Create your own gags. I don't know what is happening. Holiday and gags. Meeting deadlines. Building character name. Recognition. One of these guys. Okay, these are the some instructions. Okay, let me read. Nothing gonna be wrong if I will read. See these guys, they are the comics editors at the syndicates. Only they will determine if a comic strip is funny. I encourage you to submit your stuff simultaneously to all of the syndicates. However, I would not inform them of that fact. Do they inform you when they are looking at a comic strip that's similar to yours? You might be thinking, but what if more than one syndicate says yes to my strip at the same time? Are you kidding me? You are going to worry about a problem like that? That's like worrying that your cholesterol is too low. Most people would kill for that problem. You want that problem and I will deal with it on the next page. Anyway, here is the list of the country's top comic strip syndicates addresses your submission to the comic. King Feature Syndicates, Tribute Media Service, United Media, Universal Press Syndicate, Creator Syndicate. These are these. Okay. Money Matters. The the bidding war. Supply and demand is a beautiful thing. When two syndicates want your stuff at the same time, whoever gives you the best deal wins. Even if one syndicate is nicer, go with the nasty syndicate that gives you the best term, which may not necessarily be monetary. For example, terms may include a better licensing or marketing plan. However, perhaps the most important criteria are who wants it more, who believes in it more, who will get behind it with the most force. Usually, it's the syndicate that's willing to put up the most buck rooms. It's still, if the other one has a far better marketing plan, I'd just suggest you consider it very carefully too. How to get paid? Typically, the comic strip artist and the syndicate are paid free by the newspapers that run the strip. They pay on one sum for six dailies and a larger sum for the Sunday strip. The artist and syndicate split them for free evenly. Comic strips can syndicate in any number of newspapers, from a few to over 2,000 papers a day. Then there is the revenue from character licensing, which can include plus toys, greeting cards, books, games, television shows, commercials, and print ads. The negotiations. When it comes to negotiate, I suggest you hire an attorney who specializes in intellectual property rights. You may not know such an attorney, but you probably know someone who knows an attorney. Even if that attorney argue traffic tickets for the living, he or she will know someone who can help you. However, I wouldn't get a legal referral from the syndicate, not even if it would ensure world peace. And here is another suggestion: communicate with your attorney before he or she negotiate your price with the syndicate. Don't leave it up to your lawyer to determine what price you are willing to live with and what's a deal blower. Alternative paths to syndication. What happens if your work doesn't get picked up for syndicate on your first second attempt? You could do one or three things. You could keep trying, as many have. Some quit successfully. You could lock yourself in your room and eat chocolate until you need the jaws of light to remove you from your bed. Or you could take an alternate route. Any alternate route that stabilizes your comic strip in another form gives you to the advantage of being published, which is a big advantage. You gain experience, you amass a body of work, you become part of community of working artists, you develop a trace record for being able to deliver. Syndicates are always impressed by a person's ability to deliver. They have constant fear that their artist may run dry. So, by publishing in an alternative forum, you demonstrate the ability to keep your strip going and funny for months or even years. That's no male fit. In addition, you can work out any bugs in your strip. Comic strips should get better over time as you become more familiar with your characters. Plus, you might develop a small but loyal following, and this would also impress the syndicates. The most common alternative methods are self-syndication and local papers. Self-syndication is when you approach newspaper editors yourselves and try to get them to take on your strip. It sounds like the good idea, but it's rough road and I wouldn't recommend it unless you truly feel you are up to the task. However, this does not mean that it's not the right choice for you. The more papers that takes you on, the more money you make, and you don't have to split it with a newspaper syndicate. Plus, if you make a successful go of it, the syndicates may take a serious second look at your stuff. This advantage to self syndication is that all of the expenses are yours alone. Mass mailings with follow up phone calls may not be enough to pursue busy newspaper editors. You may find that in order to sell your strip, you need to take road trips to meet with editors face to face, all this while still producing your strip every day. Then there is the book keeping and collecting. If you have a spouse who might want to take on some of these responsibilities while you cover the creative end, this might be a good plan for you. Although it can be a lot of work, local papers provide the other alternative path to syndication. There is practically no money in doing a strip for a single local publication. However, you are not doing it for the money, not yet. That is, you are doing it to gain all the advantage you get from self-syndication with none of the drawbacks. In addition, you have never been published. Having a strip in a local paper could be an important credits. You will probably have an easier time reaching the comics editors at your local paper than at a New York Daily News. Then once you have gotten your strip up and running, you can use your best published samples to approach the major syndicates. Multi-panel strip, signature, copyright notice, details. As with the most things, the little details are always important. Never forget to sign your comic strip. The signature should go inside of one of the panels. If you have a partner, that name is listed too, but only last names, email addresses, and copyright notices should appear in the gutters between the panels, except on single panel cartoons. In that case, all the information goes inside the single panel. Syndicates will generally give you a roll of copyright logos to affix to your work, but you can also handwrite the logo. Some syndicates encourages their artists to post an email address on their strip. Some artists end up hating this because the sheer volume of inquiries can force them to hire people to respond to all the messages. If you don't answer a message, the emailer will hate your guts and stop reading your strip. It's classic no-win situations. Plus, many emailers are not really comic strip fans, just computer devotes looking for the another reason to log on the internet. Working with a partner. Usually, a comic strip partnership is a 50-50 split, with one partner acting as the artist and the other as the writer. If there are two artists initiating a strip, it's like having two drummers for a rock band. One is plenty and two is too many. The advantage to working with a partner is that no one is the boss. You share the workload, but can specialize in what you do best. The story session can be a scream. You can strategize your business decisions together and network more effectively. Good partnerships are terrific. The advantage is that one partner cannot make decisions without the other. Plus, you both may end up less than thrilled with each other. Partnership also have a legal liabilities that you should look into. And here is a really troubling problem. What if your partner is always late? I have heard stories of comic strip writers coming in late with their materials time after time. What could the artist do? They had to wait for the jokes. In these cases, it didn't take long before the strips went under. In addition, what if your parents' work is suffering? What can you do? Fire him or her? No. You are a partner, not a boss. Remember, here is how to get a partner without really getting a partner. Write and illustrate the strip yourself. If it's a lot of work, grit your strip because it won't last forever. Once you sell your strip and get it up and running, you can hire a ghost illustrator and buy freelance gags from joke writers. This may you are still the owner and everyone else is working for you. Many of the top comic strips work this way. Discussion. Read your own gags. By writing your jokes, you will create a backlog of materials that will allow you to rank yank out a usable gag in a pinch. Every comic strip author needs a heavy duty reserves because of the relentless pace in which comic strips consume materials. Rate each gag for humor with 1, 2, or 3 stars. The more stars, the funnier the gag. A 3-star joke is a go. Don't tinker with it too much because it's basically all three. A 2-star gag is one that needs some work. You are confident there is a joke in there. Perhaps it needs a stronger setup line or an alternative punchline. Even a 1-star gag is not unless you may like the area with with which the joke deals, but not the joke itself. So you keep it as a premium premise for the further gags. You should also create a falling system for your jokes. If you write a family comic strip, you might categorize your jokes under heading such as work, course, neighbors, leisure, kids, husband, wife, and so on. Reading your own jokes will help you figure out on which day you should run them. The best ones should run on Sunday and Monday when newspaper readership is highest. The solid ones should run Tuesday through Friday when the readership is strong, and the so on. Gags should run Saturday when readership is lowest. Holiday and personal gags. Your readers will feel that you are more tuned in them if you can come up with the gags that you have some timely relevance to their day-to-day lives. An effectively way to do this by celebrating the holidays with readers through your comic strip. Christmas, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, and Father's Day are among the most popular holiday. Note that you must be careful if your strip is in a sustainable number of foreign newspaper, because American holidays such as Thanksgiving and the 4th of July are not necessarily celebrated in other countries. Seasonal gags also make a welcome diversions. In the winter, sprinkle your strip with jokes about shoveling driveways and having snow fights. Do this even if it's snowless winter. People always assume it's snowing in some part of the country, even if not in there. In the summer, it's off the beach and going on road trip. Keep in mind that it's risky to incorporate gags about current events into your strip. A news story may change or take a morbid turn. In addition to your strip will be published long after those stories be break, since you have to draw your gags 4 weeks ahead of publications for dailies and 8 weeks ahead for the Sunday strip. It's hard to be timely with a schedule like this. Meeting deadlines. Comic strips are universe creatures. They must be fed 365 days a year. They appear every weekend, even on Sunday, especially on Sunday. They must appear on Christmas Day, when you are on vacation, when you are sick, and when you are taking care of sick child. That comic strip must be there every day. You can't let that page go blank ever. How do you feed the best beast and sorry still have a life? Nobody has figured that out yet, but there are a few ways to give yourself some breathing room. Build your lead time. Write a few good extra gags each week and keep them in your files. After a few months you will have a week's worth of extra daily strips, and that's a week's vacation for you. The same gags for drawings. Draw an extra gag every week or two. Make it part of your routine, like putting money away in the bank when an emergency comes up, or when you just need to take time off. You will be able to cash in on your effort. If your strip is an stabilized one, buy gags free from freelance writers whom you can meet by networking in the National Cartoonist Society. Also hire an assistant artist to do the inking and lettering on your strip. This will lighten your load considerably. Handling writer's block. Writer's block will strike, count on it. Your brain will turn to lumpy pieces of cornimal. When you least expect it. I have heard the popular advice of those who say that when you are stuck, you should go for a walk and take your mind off of your war. Come again. You have got to come up with a strip at the end of the day. It's 2 in the afternoon. You have only got 3 hours left before the FedEx guys arrive to pick up your package, and their suggestions is to take a walk. What planet are these peoples from? Here are my tips for dealing with the writer's block. Let yourself worry. Let's reasonable things to do with a deadline hanging over your head. Plus, it's a sensational motivator. Work through it. That's right. Stick with it. Write crummy gags until you break through. If that doesn't work, go to the number 3. Work on something else. This will keep your mind in work mode but release the pressure on you to solve the immediate problem. Go to your feeling system and pull out a gag that works. Hey, they are your joke. If you need one, take it. Keep coming back to your problem. Attack it from new angles. Change the setup lines or giving the give the other character the punchline. Write a completely new joke. This is often the best solution when something won't work. Sometimes it's because it's not meant to be. By switching gears, you will channel all your energy and frustration down a new path. And if that path holds any possibility, you are likely to solve your problem on your first or second attempt. Building character name recognition. Did you make a mess of the things again, Fred? Or did you astound me by raising the level of the mediocrity? You want your readers to know the name of your character. It builds familiarity and loyalty. Your reader's choice of your favorite character may surprise you. It might not be the main character but the supporting one who shows up once every week or so. However, it's hard for readers to have a favorite character if they don't even know the character's names. So insert your character's names in inconspicuously but as often as possible into your comic strip. When choosing a character's last name, try to come up with something unusual. Otherwise, you will get mail from people with that same last name. They will be angry or they will want you to send them for the free, of course. The original art of that strip, neither of these is a wonderful situation. Who will make it as a professional cartoonist? One of these guys spends lots of time talking about his new comic strip but no time actually working on it. Devote all his energy to drawing but none to writing. Take rejections personally and never tries again. Make no contacts with any other cartoonist. Is only interested in selling his own comic strip and doesn't pursue an apprenticeship on someone else's strip as a way to learn. Works very slowly, spending years coming up with one comic strip idea. The other reads books and publications about cartooning, join cartooning clubs and societies. Redoubles his energies when he receives rejections and learns from critics he receives. Comes up with a new comic strips idea if his last one didn't catch fire. Takes art classes, solicits advice from professionals and seeks work from them. doesn't just wait for his big break but gets published in other medium, developing a track record. How to protect your idea? Most cartoonists are interested in protecting their ideas, and why not? Just one good idea, such as the concept of Garfield, is all anyone needs in a lifetime. So, how do you go about protecting your ideas? Wallace Collins is an attorney in a New York City who specializes in intellectual property rights, copyrights, and trademarks. Here he shares his expertise. Chris Hart, what are intellectual property rights? Valence Collins. The easier question is, what is copyright? The creator of the character or a drawing under the copyright law, the creator of any work of art, once the copyright of that work from the moment of creation, and he or she can only assign away right to it by singing something in writing, which is why you to have be careful of what you sign once you create something. The copyright is only one form of intellectual property rights. There are also trademarks which relate to names and slogans, and there are patents which are inventions of more of mechanical chemical nature. So all of those are intellectual property rights, which basically means rights that were created out of intellect, as opposed to personal property rights, which are rights to things that you own, or real property rights, which are of real estate in land and buildings. Ch. If you want to apply and pay the nominal fee to the get your stuffs copyrighted formally at the Library of Congress, would you call the information operator in Washington DC and ask for the copyright office? You will get one of those automated answering machine, and they tell you what forms you need. You tell them your address and they send you the form. For copyright, it's pretty straightforward. Trademark is a little more involved. You own certain rights, but the registration is more of an evidentiary process really, and it breaks up you. It helps you get into federal court and collect legal fees. There are things you get. So there is a need to understand that you own rights before you get any paper. The paper evidence the rights that you are claiming. Almost I have finished. What about a poor man's copyright? The idea of sending something to yourselves in a seal involved to get a postmark stamp that proves that the date on which you created it, or even a registered receipt where you sign it yourself. Is there any effectiveness in that? WC. It's a form of proof that as of a certain day you created the work, if that ever becomes an issue. But how poor do you have to be not to not afford the $20 copyright falling free? There are certain benefits to doing the filing. First of all, if you are going to sue someone for copyright infringement, you need to have filled that form. So whether you do it now or do it later, you are going to have to do it before you sue anyone anyway. And then second of all, the way the law is written, as far as legal fees and certain damages, if you don't file that form from within 90 days of when you are offered the work for sale to the public, then the judge is precluded from awarding you statutory damages or legal fees. So there are limitations by not filing the form if it doesn't give you any more of a copyright than you had, but it kind of gives you these unnecessary rights to collect legal fees, and these kinds of things can actually be very important in a copyright infringement case. If you win, but if you got to pay your lawyers out of the money you win, that's going to be erode your winnings. Ch. Suppose you have a partner. You are going to collaborate with someone else. Do you both share the copyright? Yes. Again, where is a way the copyright law works with that if in fact people are contributing to the expressions of the ideas as opposed to the idea itself, then they are co-owners of the copyright. And because again, as I said earlier, the law requires that anyone who wants transfers rights has to transfer them in writing. It demands to be equal co-ownership to the whole work. So uh, you would have to specify it if it were not 50-50 split in writing. There was a big case last year with Harry Connick Jr. and co-songwriter, and that's what the issue was. They had done on the album in 80-20 partnership, and they had a writer written agreement. They did another one 80 out of 20 80-20 written agreement. They did a third one. They sent out the agreement, but it never got signed. And then later the record label was paying a full 50% to the co-writer, and Harry Connick sued, saying that it was an 80-20 split. The other writer said that he had never agreed to that, and the court basically said that there was no written transfer in this case, and therefore deemed it to be collaboration individually 50-50. If it were three people, it would be the three-way split, but it's an even one because the court don't want to have to try to figure out whose contribution was greater or lesser. This may sound like a very basic questions, but in fact, I think a lot of people misconstrue this. What can and cannot be copyrighted? WC. What you can't protect is the idea. So, if you say, I have a great idea to write the Amy Fisher story, you can't stop everyone else from writing the Amy Fisher story. Partially because it's just public knowledge as to the plot line, although each person's will express it differently. Soap operas are similar, sitcoms are similar. You can't protect the idea of, say, a guy and his three friends hanging out, but your expression of this idea will be different from everyone else's expressions of it. And that's what copyrightable, it's the way you express that idea. Ch. Until about 10 years ago, syndicates always insisted that they owned the comic strips. If you were the creator, you would have to sign over ownerships to the syndicate. Now some syndicates are allowing authors to retain ownership of their comic strips. How important is it to own your own story? WC. To the text extended you can, it's better to own it. The further back in time you go, the more likely it is that the company would get all the rights to the character. There are even certain current fairly big comics now for the which I have heard complaints about people singing away all of their rights. But I have handled something recently with a fairly big television company for which my clients were hired to draw to the comic up with a 5 spots featuring this particular character that they created for a periodic parody of 1950s style commercials. And one of the big negotiating points was that we were only giving right on those commercials. We were not giving merchandising rights to the character, so the television company couldn't turn around and then hire someone else to make more commercials with my client's character. It was a tug of war, but the issue for the writers was that they didn't create this creator to be paid for the 5 spot and then detached, while the company still had rights to the character. So we needed to negotiate. You need to be careful with the agreement you sign, because the odds are, if the other person is giving you the agreement, it's going to favor them and read, you give me all rights in everything forever. What you want to do is take that lump of clay and carve it into a nice statue that pleasing to everybody, because you don't want to have a situation in which you have given away the rights to everything. You want to limit it to certain things. You can copyrights are divisible. That's the key. So you can divide it up. You can give one person you can give the one person rights to put your characters on the t-shirts and nothing else, and another person's the rights to put it on cd-roms and nothing else. You really can divide up the rights into as many different media formats as you can conceive of, and make individuals deals, which I think I can better way to go. Ch with a limit, with a time limit, I suppose, because what they are doing poorly with it. WC, a time limit of a minimum financial guarantee like $10,000 a year, and maybe you will let them go on and on, because if they are not making any money as long as they pay you, a lot of time comic strips artists will toiling away for years. Suddenly they get a contract, and if the thing takes off, it could mean a lot of money. A lot of comic strips artists have come from nowhere to become very successful. How important is it for someone like that to spend the money to get a legal opinion there before signing a contract to which they could be held forever? As a general rule, I tell clients, don't sign anything other than an autograph unless I see first. You just can't rely on what anyone else is interpreting to say, and the copyright law says that unless you sign it in writing, you can't assign any rights. So in a way, even the law tries to make you think twice. You can't just give it away. You have got to sign anything, give it away, which kind of forces the creators to take a step back and say, well, maybe I should have someone who understands this stuff. Look at it. Frame without fortune is pointless. You will be famous writer, but you will have given away everything from which you can make money. It's not that you are being cynical, or that you think anyone will rip you off. But other than the copyright law, there are no laws in the remarkable place of creation. It's the law of supply and demand. Whatever they will pay you is what you will take, and most creators takes very little. But at least if you retain your rights, then if your rights becomes more valuable later, you will get more later. You just give your rights away for $10,000. Now you will have a hard time getting a second bite and the apple later. I think the key is to believe enough is in your heart, in your work, to believe that there is some value there. It doesn't mean a lawyer's going to say, let's demand $1 million and blow your deal. That's not good for you, and hopefully the lawyer's going to do what's good for you. The idea is to make the deal. Maybe you are not making a lot of money upfront, but if money is made later, you want a piece. That's usually what find myself doing, clarifying what the artist gets later if this successfully, because usually that's the web part of it. Otherwise it's the everything about what you are giving to them and nothing about what they have to do for you. I highly recommend legal advice for it, for no other reasons that I can tell you for sure. That it's much easier to fix bad deal with it is to try to get out of the bad deal. You can't unsign a contract. You got to a lawyer after seeing sometimes and say, I signed this awfully agreements, what can we do? Well, maybe we can try to recognize it, but the other side doesn't have to. They have already got their deal. When you have signed anything yet, you have got 100% of the power, because you can walk away from the table, and that's your most important asset. If you think you have got a value and they think you have got a value, they then they won't let you walk away from the table. They will give you a better offer times. When I meet the clients, the first thing I have to do is bolster their self esteem, because they have been so beaten down, and you have said they have been struggling for long that they barely believe that they are worth anything, and that's the perfect time to be abused. You think, oh well, I don't want to blow this deal, but are not you blowing if it you give away everything for nothing? Didn't you really blow it? You worked for 10 years and you got an opportunity and you gave it all away for nothing. If they really want you, I'm not talking about asking for $1 million. I'm just talking about working on out of fair arrangement. Most companies will, if they want you enough to ask you, they want you to enough deal with you. Cartooning resources. Most of the comic strip associations listed below have a local chapters, some of which may be near your neighborhood. You don't have to be professional to join them. They usually offer associated memberships to aspiring cartoonists. It's a good opportunity to network with stabilized cartoonists and meet other at your own levels. The doors wide open, so jump in. Also listed are some useful industry publications, associations, the National Cartoonist Society, blah blah blah. These steps are okay. So thank you. I have finished this book. Feeling good. So see you in the next video. Bye.